Welcome to the Coach to Coach podcast. On today's episode, we have Katie McNeil and Amanda Huber, also known as Mac and Snooki. These two have been coaching together for over a decade in the Wisconsin area, and I can't think of a better example of how to develop a co-coaching relationship between two coaches. This was an amazing show to record, was filled with such positivity and lots of amazing conversation between Mac, Snooki, and myself. I'm a huge fan of them after meeting them in Wisconsin, and I really think you'll become fans of them too. I hope you enjoy the show. What do, and you could each answer together or individually, whatever you want to do when we're doing this, that's fine. One theme that's coming up is decompression after the off season or after a match. Right? What is your go-to decompression in those moments or those time frames in a season?
Well, it's nice that Sunday comes after Saturday. So I know like Sundays I like to go for a hike, check out football, just kind of, shut the brain away. But usually my recovery, I call it recovery Sundays, going for a little hike, just getting some time alone and get some thoughts in and just kind of take a break from things.
I do those things, but I'm also a little different in that like I'm a verbal processor, so I need to like word vomit all of it out. So one of the things we do that I really love is like we generally drive together wherever we're going. Unless we have to take the bus, then we got problems. But we usually get to drive in the car together after games or practices or things like that. And then I just word vomit all of the things, and we can kind of talk it through and game plan. And so that's usually my decompression. And then I think right now my life is just really crazy, so being able to have those moments of like me time, actually, as much as they can feel stressful, they are relaxing just to be around rugby. So it's talking it through, looking at goals, talking about, all right, we were improving, maybe we didn't win or maybe it didn't go the way we wanted, but we're improving, we can find the silver linings in all of it. So that's usually my decompression with rugby.
You both have your systems, and they're both different in very unique ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Mac, you've always sort of struck me as kind of the silent type a little bit, not a lot, but you're Amanda does say a few more words than most of us. We were mentioning this in the pre-show that the two of your relationship in a co-coaching environment is quite unique and very public and very cool to see. Obviously, we met in Wisconsin. Tell me how Mac and Snooki came about. Like, where did this start? Were you both playing together? Were you both like looking for a team individually, and somebody was like, "Hey, you two should meet"? Like, walk me through how that happened and what that was like.
Yeah. So we both went to the same college. I graduated a few years before. And so I was still in the area. I was managing a couple group homes, and I was playing for Oconomowoc. Snooki was playing for Whitewater. And I took an injury, so it sidelined me. I was no longer able to play with Oconomowoc, and had always known I wanted to get into coaching a little bit. I mean, I was president and kind of, facilitated and ran UW-Whitewater rugby when I was there. So they reached out, they needed a coach. Snooki was on the board at that time. She was vice president. So we were able to kind of sit down and meet. I had known of her, but never really had that opportunity to connect until, they had asked me to come on and start coaching. So then, coming into that situation, I knew a few of the girls, but really needed to establish who was going to be our captains, who were going to be my confidants that I was going to be able to work with. And so not really knowing much of the girls, I just based it upon energy and effort. And Snooki stood out to me in every single way, just her heart, her energy. And so I had named her one of our captains along with one of our other best friends, Ripley. So it was kind of the three of us that headed UW-Whitewater, and we took over at a time where they were losing 100-0. They were really kind of getting their butts kicked, celebrated when they scored a try. And so we really had to do a big culture shift. We really had to do a big change. And so at times it felt like it was the three of us against the world. We were trying to lay our foundation that we were going to work this a certain way. We were going to trust each other. We were going to live on loyalty. And just kind of that was just the foundation of what we wanted to bring to the team. And that was really just the foundation of our friendship, is just having each other's backs when everyone was against us. Everyone wanted to tell us, you know, what we could, what we couldn't do. But we always just fought for each other. So I just think that that was just kind of the kickoff to starting. So I had coached Snooki for 2 years prior to then her joining me as our coaching staff once she had graduated. So now just finishing up our 10th year coaching together, it's been pretty special.
Amanda, do you remember it that way? Anything to add to that?
She definitely gives you the very nice version of it. I think me in college, I think it was my freshman year, sophomore year of college is when I met Mac. And alumni is one of those big things that happen, at least when we were in college, where all the alumni come back. It's a big drink fest, and people maybe say or do things that they might not normally say or do. And you have influences by other older girls who may encourage you to do things that you would not normally do. And so I am really bad at first impressions generally. People often have a view of who they think I am because of sometimes the way I can come across. And so I think the first time we ever actually face-to-face met was at a Whitewater alumni after match. And it was not the best way to represent myself for lots of different reasons. But then like she said, one of the other girls that was on the board with us had said, hey, like Mac, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, whatever. But at the same time, there were other girls that had known Mac and had this view of her that like, oh, it's not going to be good. Oh, we don't want her back involved. So there was a lot of this mixed messaging truly from the beginning of like, we don't want her. And I was like, listen, the coach that we never had like a steady coach prior. And there was a lot of things that happened my first couple of semesters with Whitewater that was not even like sports focused. It was all about drinking. It was all about all the wrong things about rugby. And I was still trying to figure out what even is rugby. And I'm here for the competition. I want to go out there. I want to do my best. I want to win. And we had never scored a try. The first entire year I played rugby, we never scored a single try. And so like there were girls that were like okay with that. I just wasn't. And so when there was an opportunity to have somebody be a coach, I was like, let's go meet her. Let's figure out what this is all about. And it was totally awkward. It was so awkward when we first met. I was like, okay, yeah, let's do this. And we grew. And I think the beautiful thing for me was it was the growth of Mac as a coach. It was the growth of like her believing in me was like the biggest like trust thing that you could ever like offer somebody. I was like, okay, if you're giving me this opportunity, like let's do this. Because a lot of the experiences I had prior was the exact opposite. Like, nope, you don't know what you're doing. Nope, you can't do this. Nope, you're just going to go fit in this mold. And I am not a mold fitter. So for somebody to go out there and believe, like, I see you, I see something in you. It was like, okay, do or die. I'm with you. Let's do this. And then it just grew from there. And like Max said, I got to that point where I was graduating and it was really sad for me because there was a lot of different opportunity that was coming when like my cohort had graduated. So I was like, I'm not ready to walk away. I don't know where my life is going. I was going to grad school. I was moving, my school was in Milwaukee instead of Whitewater. So I was working at Brodelac where she was also managing. So we were just like, let's commit, let's do this together. And there were good days and bad days, but it was truly like the car rides where we were going to go to practice and the debriefing after. And it's like, you just build a relationship like after every practice, after every game, after every conversation. And then we just are always talking about goals, always talking about where we want to see ourselves in the future. And we just aligned in a lot of ways, both like profession, like in like a work way, but then also like in like a coaching way, but then also just like personal values. We really align a lot that same way. So it was just a lot of things that built up over time, I think. But like she said it way better than I did. But there was a little bit of wild, a little bit of chaos that was at the beginning.
That is such a rad story to hear that the two of you, you started as a player and then, took that jump and that risk to become a coach, because Mac believed in you, because
Mhm.
Mac said, hey, let's go do this, right? And there's a lot to dive in there, and I hope you two are happy to chat about some of those things, right? We've mentioned car rides a couple times, I think until you play or coach in the Midwest, you don't really understand what a car ride is like in the Midwest. Like your shortest trip to your next opponent is probably 3-4 hours at sometimes, especially in college rugby, which, when I went to Minnesota, I was like, oh yeah, sweet. We got a bus ride or whatever. And it was like 13 hours to Ohio State, and I was like, oh my God. What were some of the things you both sort of worked on together in those rides? Did you always, you said you talked about goals, you said you align on personal values. Were there any moments or memories you could share where that you specifically said, you know what, this is really working?
I'm going to go first. I think for us, it was a lot of fun. Like it was like the core of like how we started was like, let's just be free and have fun and no judgment. Like it was like silly little things that like, oh, let's go. I don't know if I would say that. I'm going to say it anyways. Like on the way back from a really hard tournament, let's go to every bar on the left. Deal, and like we just did silly adventures that just like you just get to be free and it's okay to say the things that you want to say. And there was just like no judgment, like truly no judgment. And I don't know that lots of people have ever experienced that, but it's like the beauty of like I could be who I was, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. And sometimes I can be pretty ugly. And it was like, okay, like it was always okay. And so, I think that for me, that's what always sticks out is like the beautiful memories of like, we just had fun. Like we just went out there, had fun, and it was okay.
Yeah, I think for me, like Snooki, she's always, I want to say like a dreamer, and that was inspiring to me. Like she's always a goal setter. So I remember one of my first seasons, it was just announced that rugby was coming back to the Olympics. So I think this was like 2013, and Snooki was like, I want to go to the Olympics. So I'm like, okay, well, let's look up what we have to do to get you to the Olympics. And so then it's always just been like goals, and we could dream together and we could come up with these outlandish, ideas. But then all of a sudden it's like, well, these are kind of coming together. Like these are, just believing in it. And I think loyalty is always going to be the thing that we come back to, is because we just stay true to it. And if you want to dream, like, well, we're going to go make it happen. Even if it's the craziest thing in the world, if we're going to go to the Olympics, well, we're going to find a way. Like, let's go to the Olympics. I mean, we didn't make it to the Olympics, but
no.
Someday we'll have a girl that does.
For sure.
The Olympics are coming to Los Angeles in 2028. You didn't specify whether it was playing, coaching, or spectating.
That's
so,
right.
If y'all are coming out to Southern California, we'll have to do a big rugby meetup in Los Angeles. I want to go to the Olympics too. So let's get a crew together, go down there and have some fun, I think it'll be a great time. It's so unique to see two people who are outwardly very different, right? If you look at the two of you and you see you two individually, you're like yin and yang, chalk and cheese, oil and water. And I'm not saying that in a manner of like you hate each other. It's like, do you feel that your individual personalities enable your relationship to be stronger, right? Like, so one has more strengths where the other has weaknesses, and how does that play out? Who's stronger at what? Tell me who takes the lead in what and where.
I think we complement each other very well. Like, I know that there'll be moments where maybe I'm giving a speech and then I'm kind of, maybe I'm getting emotional or I'm losing it, and she knows right when to step in and kind of take over that. But I feel like I can be my best self because of her. She never, ever has judged me. Like, she encourages me to be myself. And I think that that's just been the most freeing. And I think the best thing about Snooki is that just the love that she has given me, and that she's never once, questioned who I am or why I am the way that I am. She just loves me for it. And I wouldn't be Mac without Snooki, because she just gives me that confidence, and it's just special.
You're gonna make me cry about it.
Oh man, we can't do that.
Don't. I'm a sympathetic crier. That'll be 3 of us crying on this call.
Happening. I totally, it is like totally that same thing. Like, I think like I can't even like necessarily tease out like who has strengths in what spaces, because I feel like the evolution of our relationship, it's ebbed and flowed. Like, I really feel like there's been moments where I'm like, I might feel lost in whether that's my life or whatever is going on. And then she is like the rock that like keeps me grounded and keeps bringing me back to like, well, hang on, like, where are we going? What do you need in this moment? And then, and like vice versa. I think there's been times where we've had lots of experiences that have helped us grow. And the beauty is when hard things happen, we are always there for each other. And it's not this like we show up and we like solve the problem. Like we're not like this, solve it for each other. It's just like, I'm just going to walk alongside you as this is going on. And like, what can I do to support you? And like, sometimes we're just sitting in the ick together and it's just somebody that will do that. And I definitely think that it's just like she said, like, we just bring out the best in each other. Like truly, like, I think when things happen or when we get really cool opportunities, it's like what I don't feel calm until I'm like, where's Mac? Where, like we're okay, we're together, or I can see you. We've got like, there's a level of connection. I'm good now. But when it's like, I tell her all the time, if I ever had to coach by myself, I wouldn't do it. There's no way. And not because I don't love it and not because like I don't have the knowledge to do it, but like, it's not what I enjoy it because I enjoy being and doing it with her. Like I coach to coach the girls, but I coach to coach with Mac.
It's incredible. Wow. Let's talk about early Mac and Snooki before rugby, before anything, and separately, right? Like obviously together, you two are amazing, right? And you found your way. You're growing. You're still growing together now, which is really impressive to see. Were there moments early on in your sports career or before college, before you both got together, where someone in your life or you individually thought, coaching or teaching might be something I'd like to do?
Yeah. I, from a young age, my dad was a coach. So my dad started coaching football when I was like 8, 9 years old. He coached my brother. So I had always been able to see him. I got to be the water girl. And for years, I mean, he's still coaching. He's on his 27th year of coaching. And so I've always wanted to be a coach because I got to see him coach. I got to see how impactful he was to his players. One of my favorite things was going to his, so he coached 7th and 8th grade football. And after he was an assistant coach, so he didn't really speak a whole lot after the game. But afterwards, he always just told his players one thing. He said, just go home and do something nice for your parents. And that's what his message always was just the kindness. So I think that's always been embedded in me. I've always hoped that I could be a coach. I always enjoyed playing sports growing up. I have an older brother, so soccer, volleyball, those were, my typical sports, but I aged out pretty quickly just because high school is pretty demanding. I never did club sports. I never did anything like that. It's the love of the game is what I competed for. So then finding rugby was like, okay, maybe I really could be a coach because that was a sport that I really enjoyed and I found success in. And so that's, always hoping to be a coach, but then finding rugby, I was like, this can be a reality. So yeah, I always grew up hoping to be one.
My life was very different. I was a gymnast in high school, but I also did drama. I was in band, so I was kind of in all the different little things. Never in my wildest dream would I ever even believe that I would be a coach. I definitely did things. I enjoy sports. I enjoy competition. I like to compete with people. It definitely pushes me and drives me. And I think the hard part for me is stepping out of that space to coach people, because then you have, at least beginning coaching, I struggled with like, I don't have a role. Like I don't feel like I have a role, because my role as a rugby player is to show people how to be aggressive, how to bring the energy. And you can't be the energy, I thought, if you're not a player on the field. And so like over time that has changed. And Mac and I, the crazy thing, and people tell us this and I love it because it's one of my favorite things, is like the energy that we bring or the vibe that we bring. It's just naturally us, but like in lots of different spaces, like we could show up and cheer some people on the sidelines. And I kid you not, it'll change the dynamic of a game just because of just that energy that we bring. And so I have learned that over time, but initially that was not on my radar. I did not want to coach. I had zero desire. I struggled with it for a little while of like, am I being impactful? Am I saying or doing the right things? And being hypercritical about like, I don't even know what to say. I don't know how to do the things. But then that's where Matt came in and just really encouraged me and was like, no, you can do it, And so it's really been that dynamic of like her helping both model, but then also like encourage. But yeah, I definitely would say that I would never have been a coach without Mac. And my family is not athletic. There is nobody in my family that coaches. My husband tried to coach 4-year-old soccer this fall, and I said, we will never do that again. So it's definitely like if you get the both of us or you don't get me.
4-year-old soccer, he can't even coach it. That's amazing.
Terrible.
You know, you are the coach in the family, so it's a hard pedigree to follow. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Snooki, would you say your gymnastics or dance coaches, have you seen them since your gymnast or dance days, and are they surprised you're coaching? Like, what's the reaction when people find out you coach?
That is a really good question. I really don't see or talk to a lot of people. So my like hometown is like 4 hours north of here. We're like Marshfield area, central Wisconsin. So I really don't know that much people. Nobody has outwardly said anything to me about feedback. I honestly think though, if I took a guess, people would be shocked. I think in a lot of ways, lots of different spaces I've grown, but like the jump from like high school to college. So I went 4 hours away for school. I can't even explain the difference that my life is just by like leaving that my like hometown and then again meeting the right people at the right time to help me learn and grow to become who I am today. So I don't think anybody that I like grew up with would even believe like who I am as a human being, what I do for a career, like how I coach. Like I think that would be really surprising to a lot of people. But my coaches, I think sometimes what happens in my life is I look at the people in my life that failed me in ways and I want to become the opposite of them. So I not that it's a huge, it's not a diss on them personally, but I don't know that anybody has ever showed up for me the way that I wish a coach could have. Like we talk about this a lot too, of like the impact that you have as a coach, like the impact that you could have, like is huge. And it's all about the relationship. And if you don't purposely it's not about the skill, like the skill comes, but like the relationship is so important. And if you don't make an effort to have a relationship, like then you lost an opportunity. And I think so many times in the experiences that I had, my coaches didn't make an effort to have a relationship with me. I was not a good gymnast. I wasn't bad, but I wasn't good. And so I wasn't the star. And so I didn't get the attention. So often I was doing my own skill and I was willing to do any of the things. Like you asked me to do something, I will do it. But like it was that like missed opportunity time and time again. And I felt it as a high schooler. I knew like, I know I'm not giving you what you want, or I'm not the player you want me to be, but I'm just here because I enjoy doing competitive things. It wasn't until rugby that it was like, I felt seen. I felt validated. I felt like, okay, you get me and you're willing to build a relationship and you're willing to put energy and time into me. And then like we've been saying, like, that's when I'm like, you give me that, I will mirror everything and I'll give you more. Like it just helped me raise the bar, both as a physical player, but then also just as like a human being.
Damn, that was well said. Like seriously, like
Thanks.
I would pay to have 20 Snookies on my team. You know, anybody that we model and they give it back to you. That's amazing. You know, you're talking about relationships and you're talking about a lot of values in sort of what both of you do, right? I see attitude and gratitude on both your shirts. I'm sorry, I didn't get the black shirt call tonight. My bad. I'll get one of those and wear those someday. Tell me a little bit about where the attitude and gratitude shirt comes from. You know, what are some of the values as a team, a coaching team that you all put out into the world?
Yeah, I just think just appreciation of each other and having this opportunity to, like we often say, like rugby is our time to just go live in our Mac and Snooki world and go on some adventures, and like that's all that matters. So I just think like that, and having gratitude for the girls that buy into what we're saying and buy into our culture and are willing to give us exactly what we're giving them, and it's just something special. So I think just like appreciating and taking that time to be present, to really seeing what we have and who we have in our life, and it's just I appreciate the heck out of it, and just all of the adventures that we've been able to have. It's just special.
Same. I think it's a lot of like, and again, this has evolved over time. So when we were first coaching, I think a lot of it was like really more focused on like fitness and technicality and like just basic rugby IQ. And then when we moved into high school league and you get these players that are in a different space, high school players at 14 years old are different than college girls at 18, 19. And so you have a different level of buy-in. You have a different level of like, I'm going to put in effort. I'm going to put in work. You have a different pool that you're pulling from. And I mean, at one point we had like 40 girls and we're like, how do you coach 40 girls? We've been coaching like 3. So it was just really cool to see like the dynamic that shifted, and that it's truly like high school is like the space for us, and for so many reasons, like that, the rugby part of it, the commitment part of it, but like also like the space, like high schoolers. Ooh, I'm going to get real for a second. The relationships that you have with high schoolers, because they're so vulnerable, because their brains are not fully developed. They're quite impulsive. They're pushing away from their parents. They're pushing away from any adult who's going to have an opinion about something. And they're looking for their peers for, how do I live in this world? How do I create autonomy? And it's such a vulnerable time, especially with all the social media and kids feeling lonely and disconnected and depressed. And you can look up the stats for all of that. And I'm going to say this out loud because it's important. Suicide is the third leading cause of death for young people, and that is not okay. And so if we get to have a space where we can share, like, hey, we're open here to talk. We're open to just be a space to give you encouragement, to say you matter. And like Max said, like, it's this gratitude that, one, we are given this opportunity to be maybe role models, maybe a space holder, whatever that is for these girls. Like, that's just like unbelievable. You don't get, like, you will never know the wave of impact you have on somebody. Like, even if they tell you, even if they come back 10 years later and say, you did all these great things, like, you're never going to know all of the influences that you had. And like Max said, like what Timmy, her dad, did for her to show, like, value, give praise back, be grateful to your family. She does that for these girls so much. She does that for me all the time. She is the definition of a giver and a give back. And to be able to model that and then have the girls participate in that, you gain self-esteem, you gain value as a human. And like, how can you not be grateful for that? Like, we just get to impact people in a positive way by being who we are and spreading the goodness around. Like, it is just a fun thing to be. And it is an opportunity that someday might end. You know, and I think that's the scary thing is, like, as my life has changed and I've had a baby and we're like, COVID, we're like, oh God, like, is this the year that we're done? I'm like, no, I'm not ready. We're going to find a way. We're going to find a way. Then I go and have another one. Like, what am I doing? And same thing, like, is this the end? And we're like, no, I'm not ready to be done. And so we just continue to mold and be grateful, because this time might end and it might change, but like, we still have each other. It just doesn't look a little different.
Damn. There's so much inside of both of you. It's incredible. Let's talk about your coaching journey, right? And the different roles. Am I correct in saying you both started at Whitewater together post Snooki's graduation, right?
Yeah.
How long did that last at Whitewater? What did you transition to post Whitewater?
Snooks, you want to take this?
Yeah, I love this journey. So we were at Whitewater for 2014, 2015, and then we moved 2017 or 2016, fall of 2016. We moved to a little bit, ended in the fall, started really the spring of 2017, right? Yeah. With Vernon. So Vernon is this little teeny tiny village that is near, like, south of Waukesha. And it was this group of girls who I will forever love. And I'm going to get emotional about them.
You can't cry. I'm a sympathetic crier. Please don't cry.
Hold it back. They were about a group of 10-ish that were just so committed to rugby at high school. They were high school seniors and they just wanted to play. They were juniors going into their senior year. They just wanted to play. They wanted to finish through their senior year. And their coach had just, like, up and left. And so they were doing all the things they could do, navigating, like, going to tournaments, being part of the league, getting dues, getting new jerseys. They went and found out how to fundraise at Culver so they could pay for jerseys. I mean, it was insane what they did as just a group of high school students, just because they loved the sport of rugby. And so we got to go in and support them and just be coaches for them. They had histories of really great coaches. It was just somebody couldn't commit to them anymore. And so we just stepped in just to be that support and that liaison for them. But they had the rugby knowledge. They had hearts of warriors. And it was just, we just got to be there to support them. And then the unfortunate reality is, so that after that big group of seniors had left, it's really hard when you don't have somebody in a school to recruit for high school. And we were kind of playing between built 2 different high schools to kind of pool for our 3 different high schools to pool into our club. And it just got so challenging. We couldn't recruit enough. So we really did drop from like 12 girls at practice to like 3. There was lots of times we had practices with 3 girls, and those girls had the spirit, they had the love, the drive, phenomenal rugby players, but we couldn't play, you know, and when you commit, you want to play. And we merged for a little bit with another team in our league, and things work and things don't work. And it is really hard. And I know you kind of alluded to this earlier, but like, it's hard to have a coaching dynamic where everybody feels like they're valued and heard. And it's really hard. Mac and I have this really great dynamic. And when you feel like a third wheel, that really sucks. And like, I totally can acknowledge that, but it's also like the reality of like how, like, it's intimidating to be around us and just the gel of how we move. But so then we moved out of that space and had a really cool opportunity because of Barry. There's a long history here with Barry through Whitewater as well with Mac, but he offered an opportunity to coach sevens at Sussex. They had just started up, and we're like, you know what? It feels right. Like Barry was teaching at the time at Hamilton. He was kind of the CEO administrator role, and we were able to kind of step into just coaching sevens. And then it just evolved over time. And COVID really did us, really honestly, like it was really sad that we couldn't play the same season, but it did us such a service to build those relationships with the girls. And it just exploded from there. But I don't know, Matt, you want to add anything to that?
No, that sounds perfect. But yeah, I mean, sums it up to where we are now with Hamilton. We've been there. We just wrapped up our 5 years with Hamilton, and couldn't be happier with our journey and where we're at. And it just, you know, so when we were back in our Whitewater days, Snooki and I were at a pizza joint, and we were just having, you know, some brainstorming sessions. And we're like, all right, if we can get out to kind of the Sussex area that we're talking about, and we're like, we can get like a bunch of girls and we could really build like a dynasty. And we had talked about it, and all of a sudden it's coming true. And we're like, we put that out in the universe, and like we just always believed, and we worked towards it, you know, and just trusting the process, that every little step, every little journey that was supposed to lead us to where we are. And just I couldn't be happier with, you know, our current state and coaching at Hamilton. And
it's incredible to hear how you trusted your process and put things into the universe, and it manifested itself. Now, I completely understand there was a lot of hard work on both of your parts. The parents of the girls and the girls themselves, and, you know, administrators, you know, but I think there's a lot to take away in that if you want to do something, you have to put it out in the universe.
Yeah.
Right. You got to throw it against the wall and be like, look at it every day and say, yep, we're going to go do that. Right. And it's incredible that the two of you have had sort of that goal setting mindset from an early time together and saw yourselves in the position you're in now. Like, there's no better example of, hey, you should do it this way than that. Speaking of goals, let's talk a little bit about, Amanda, Snooki, you said this isn't going to last forever. You know, I'm never going to ask you when it's going to end, like, because I don't want it to end. As a friend, as a fan, as, you know, a fellow coach, I don't want it to end. But what are some of the things the two of you still want to accomplish together? Is there a list?
Oh, listen, someday you're going to see us, and we're going to coach football, and you're going to see us with a national championship. That's all I can say about that. But there are goals.
Okay.
Yeah. I think, you know, we had talked about too, maybe someday, like being able to write a book or, you know, motivational speaking. Those are just some of the dreams that, you know, we've put out to the universe recently. But yeah, football, that would be fun, right? Like, we could take over some dudes, and yeah.
Wait, Mac, did you know that Snooki wanted to coach football? Have you talked about this already, or is this the first time you heard?
Yeah, this is a dream. We've been putting it out there for a while, and
we just have to learn football a little bit better, but someday.
I'll tell you right now, if you two want to learn a little bit more about football, I have a friend of mine that I played Aussie rules with during COVID. Her name is Connor. She's the head coach of the Minnesota for the women's semi-professional league. So I'll connect the three of you if you want to learn a little bit more about football. She's amazing. and also a hell of an Aussie rules football player. Let's just be real. So happy to make that connection and see if that can ever become a thing. Right? What else? Is there anything else you want to accomplish? I mean, that's coaching. Put it into the universe.
I think the big thing too, we've talked about this really truly for a long time too, is writing that book to share, because I think like you said, like you never really know the impact or like the way that other people see you. Like sometimes you get too much of what some people think, but you don't always know how people see you. And I just appreciate your take on us, because it feels like you just give us so much like love and so much appreciation, and we don't always get that. And so I think our story is so important, just not only like the rugby pieces, but just our journey through coaching, because again, there have been moments that have been so tough, and there have been moments that it's like, man, like what is the point of this, and why are we doing this? And then to be able to come back together and be like, it is bigger than this moment, it's bigger than these really hardships, and then again, the relationship that we have together and the fun that we have, and to get to a place now at Hamilton where it's like, it's so fun to win, like it feels great to win, but then it's also like when you don't quite make it, when you get that second place, like it's almost this bittersweet, but like the bitter part doesn't last as long as the sweet, because you get to see the growth, and you get to see like there's room for improvement. You don't always get to be number one. And if you are, well, then you're not really having fun. Like you want to be able to continue to compete. And so I think the book that we really often talk about is just perspectives on like our life, on coaches, and different chapters of the different lessons that we've learned. And it's both like rugby, but it's also just like self-improvement, leadership, like just the journey that we've been on. Because I think, I've read a lot of books. I love reading, and I am a supervisor, a leader in the agency that I work for. But I often get like a lot of people, like you miss the part about the relationships, and relationships are golden. And if it, like you just talked about, like I have a connection, da 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 da. Like that's what gets us to where we want to go, and like that's what makes life happen the way that it should. It's not necessarily always about who's the best or who has the most knowledge, or sometimes it's about who worked harder, and sometimes it's not. It's about the relationship, and not to use that in a way to like pawn or get things, but really as a way of like, if you build the right connections and you share your stories and share your experiences, like that helps other people. And I think that's truly like when I think about our goals, like it's that. Like it's so simple of like, how do we just be good people? How do we teach our girls to be good people? How do we continue to make the world better? And so like, I'm going to tell you another one. Someday, listen, I am 30. How old am I? 32. I think I have 2 more years and I'm eligible to be president. So like, watch out, 2027. That's another goal. President, vice president, like we could do it. But it's like some of those things, like some of it is silly, and I totally know that. But at the same time, like, why not? Why not think about it? Why not dream about it? And like, if things really do fall into place like that, well, then hell yeah. And if they don't, I still think that the good that we're doing, the good things that we do for people has the impact that it should. I mean, you want to see this world, this country, truly the world, a better place. And I think that we're just doing that one little bit by lessons with girls, experiences that we have together, telling our story, and all those little things matter. And so I think it's that, like, we've got big, silly goals, we've got little goals, but I think it's just always whatever we do, doing it together.
Mac, anything to add to that? That was fucking amazing.
Yeah, Snooks is the best. I will leave it at that.
Sometimes you find yourself sort of like relating to people that you never related to because you see them and for some reason, right, it sort of sticks with you. And the two of you, something stuck with me the first time I met you in Oshkosh, right? I was like, they're cool. Like, I don't know why, but I want to hang out with them, and getting to see you at the second Oshkosh and learning more about you on social media, and now hearing some of the things you're saying, right? Like Snooki, you said that at times people gave you guys a lot of grief, and I could be accused of being a little bit much myself at times, right? And a bitter acquired taste for people. And so I relate to that. And I think that's probably one of the reasons we sort of have connected in the way that we have, right? All these medals over here behind me, this one right here is the only first place medal. Everything else is second place.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with that. I am super stoked about all of the second place medals I have because there's only 2 teams in that game.
Yeah.
Like if you're pissed about losing the last game, you're really missing the point of the 10 others that you had to play to get to that, right?
Exactly.
And so I share and relate to much of the things you all are saying, right? I have goals myself. I just don't put them out into the universe as much as the two of you, but I think I'm going to take that lesson and throw it out there, right? Like, you know what? I've been thinking I want to write a book too. So maybe I'll write a book, and I have an idea, and I'll say it offline so no one steals it, and see if you two think it's a good idea. But I hear us coming back to a theme about the long game of coaching. The moment someone walks into your program, you don't know that impact you're going to have with them, and you may not know even while they're there, right? Are there some moments where you realized it was a long game, right? Would you be willing to share some stories where it was down the road where you were like, oh shit, I didn't realize I had that sort of impact?
I think it's just starting to come around now that we're getting invited to weddings, and I get to officiate a wedding this next summer of a girl that at that Vernon team that Snooks had mentioned earlier, and Snooks will be a part of that wedding as well. So just getting moments like that is just so special, and it's the life moments that they want us to be a part of. That's really where it knows, like, all right, what we did mattered, and we made an impact on them, and this is going to be a relationship for life. And we're just starting to see some of these coming together. So it's awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly what came to my mind first is, watching these players build relationships, get married, have babies, like they're building their life, and that they still come back to say, you guys were the best coaches, that you guys da-da-da-da-da. And it's just like, man, out of all the things that are happening in your life, like you make a point to continue to like our posts, to engage with us. Like it doesn't end at we stop playing rugby. I could call them right now and I bet you they answer, that they're down to, like, I need help. They're going to come and do that because of the relationship we've built. And it does, it grows in time. So I think about another girl that the beginning of her time with us, I have to be very purposeful about how I talk about this. I think the relationship rubbed a little bit, and it was a challenging to coach. And as she's now has graduated and moved on, has had to make some really challenging decisions for herself, and being able to come to us and talk that through. Like, I'm thinking about making this decision. I'm thinking about doing that. And to, like, out of all the people in her life, she's coming back to us to ask, hey, what do you think? How should I handle this? And just to be able to have an impact on those small conversations or those big conversations that lead to big decisions. Another girl that came back and helped coach with us when we went down to our first nationals, she was making a decision, should I apply for grad school? And I was like, yes, just do it. Who cares? Like, if you get denied, who cares? At least you tried. And she went on to apply and she made it in, and so it's just like all these little moments that, like, they get to come back and they have the conversation or they celebrate the wins with us. I think we get to see those things in little moments, but then the big ones, like weddings are expensive, and being invited and then getting the honor to officiate or be a part of it is just, like, so special. So I think we just continue to see more and more how much they're continuing to reach back and want us in their life, and in small or big ways. It just continues to resonate with us.
Can I say one thing about applying places? Can I say one thing about that?
Yeah.
If for everybody out there,
yes,
just apply. The answer will always be no if you don't apply, right?
Exactly.
And if you do apply and they come back to you and you have an interview, the offer has to be so good to move you off your current position that you take it, right? Yeah. So do it. Just go out there and apply. I have a lot of friends and players that do the same thing, and it's like, why not?
Right.
Push you off that cliff. Let's go. Like, let's do that. Still talking on the long game theme here, right? One of the moments for me was a player told me about a throwaway phrase that I thought was just something I said while I was coaching, so I wouldn't yell at a referee. Do you two have any sort of coaching catchphrases or things you say? We all have them as coaches, right? Like, what are your catchphrases? What do you think is your throwaway that somebody might bring to you in 10 years and be like, Max, Snooki, you told me this, and I live by it. Like that's the one that surprised me. So do you have anything like that?
Oh, Snooks, can you think of
Yeah.
any? Yeah.
So
Oh,
first of all,
wait. Tell me the others. Snooks, tell me what Max is, and Mac, you tell me what Snooks is.
I think mine are all the things that I say are all bad things. I think all the things that she says, I put on a t-shirt. So all of our t-shirts, those are the good slogans. But I think like it's every season we have like a theme. So the girls, like when we have a good season, those girls buy into that theme. So like we'll say these little kind of catchphrases throughout the games or throughout the different tournaments that we play. Like on one t-shirt we have is like grit, and each letter stands for something, right? We talk about it throughout the whole season. Like it's a word and it matters and there's more to it. And we have like trust the process, because like truly, like that was when we went down to our first nationals. We're like, listen, we want to go all the way. That would be awesome. But like at the same time, this is our first time being here. We don't know what to expect. We don't know what's going on. Just trust the process. And we've lived that truly as we go play big games, and that our first nationals playing for that third place, I think we held up like 8 tries. Like, I don't know exactly the number, but it was phenomenal. And to watch these girls like never give up, it was like, trust the process, trust the training, trust what we've built for. Even though we're not, again, playing for that first place, like this is still something to be proud of. And so a lot of times when there's really cool catchphrases or themes that Mac comes up with, I put them on a t-shirt and then they get the good old Mac and Snooki logo. So I definitely can hook you up with one. But it's definitely, I think when she says things like, and I believe in that, like it's got to go on a t-shirt. So
Yeah.
Matt, can you tell us some of Snooki's bad sayings?
Well, I don't know if it's appropriate for Snooki she always just brings the energy of like she's aggressive, and like that's her style of like when she was playing, like she wants you to be the best rugby player. You want to be the best rugby player out there. You're going to be the most aggressive. You're going to be making those tackles. And so I think a lot of it's probably just her like pumping up. And when I hear from our girls, like if Snooki wasn't able to make it to something, they're like, man, we just miss her energy. So I just think the nonsense that, not nonsense, but like just the stuff that she's yelling and what she's encouraging, it's fun. You never know what's going to come out of Snooki's mouth, honestly.
That's true.
You ready for me to lob some grenades into the conversation?
Yes, those are the
Let's
best.
have it.
Okay, so some of the things I've been playing with for, trying to tease out information and get coaches' thoughts and stuff are some questions, right? I asked one today in a coaching group that I'm in, and it went up on the social media today. So I would love to know both of your answers. And it's only about the feeling in the post-game situation, right? Let's talk like post-match plus 24 hours and that window after a big game, right? Are you feeling it doesn't matter the result, you could go either way is the other thing. Do you love to win or do you hate to lose?
I think younger coaching would have said I hate to lose, but I think now where I'm at, I would say I love to win, and the losing, it doesn't really impact as much. We had a really big game at state this year, and we lost by 1 point. It was 13-12, and just such an awesome game. And I think the first words I said to our team when we were in the huddle is our worth is not found in the result of this game. So I just think that's come along on the journey. A younger coach, I would have said, yeah, I hate losing, but it's fun celebrating a win. They're not always, going to come. There's 2 teams that are playing, and one of you is going to come out the winner. And so I just think winning is a great feeling, but I don't fear losing. Losing is a lesson. That's what we constantly like. We're going to be so much better. We always say that it's a part of something bigger than ourselves. And so sometimes those losing moments are lessons, and to get to where we are going to go, we have to experience that.
Same. I that's exactly how I feel too. Of like, I think early on it was definitely like, God, like, why are we losing? Like, God, like we got to get better. But then it's just the growth and like realizing that like, right, like you could play the same team 10 times and it could go 50-50, like it all just comes down to who in that moment made the right decisions or made less mistakes. And like, you only get so much time in a game, and it doesn't equate to your value. It doesn't equate to, you know, who was necessarily the better team, especially in a game like that where you are battling every moment of that game. Those are the things I love. And like, I think about, you know, I think whether it's a win, loss, happy, sad, like it's a quick up and a quick down. Like it dissipates so quickly, whether we win or whether we lose. It's like, how did that game go and how did we play? And so for me, don't get me wrong, I love to win because I love when they, you know, dump water bottles on Mac or dump her with water. But like, it's a quick up, it's a quick high, and it quickly goes away because it's really about the process. It's about getting there. It's about the moments, the decisions. When you watch a girl or a player make decisions that you're like, yes, like you had the confidence to do that. Like those are the things that I'm like, that is what I'm walking away with today, regardless of the score. But so I definitely think like I love the process.
It sounds like both of you are on the same page about mastery of the sport rather than outcome. And that's a great place to be. You know, you can clearly see that the longevity in the game as players and as coaches is important to you, right?
Yes.
Like, and even once you're done coaching and you're done playing, those relationships and those things still matter. And you can see that. That leads me to a next question. Thinking back upon your coaching careers, right? What is something about players that you thought you knew that now you've completely changed your mind?
I got soft. I think that's I think like when the beginning, you know, it was the fitness, it was the working hard, it was, you know, this is what we have to do, you know, to be successful. But now I think that we definitely I take a softer approach where I'd rather I care about the individual, and you know, I'm not going to put you through too much pressure if that's not what you need right now. So I think just coaching each individual to what they need. I probably am a little bit more laxed in, you know, the technicality and you know, the hard work at practice. I guess like if they're I just think I got soft a little bit and just kind of but I don't, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say too soft. But
Mac, I hear you saying you're a more caring, empathetic coach now than you probably were when you started.
Yeah.
You're not soft, you're empathetic. Those are strong traits to have. Let's be real.
Appreciate. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Snooks, what about you?
I don't know that I have a good answer. I feel like I demand a lot. I feel like I have high expectations, and I don't let them come down. And that's like the high expectations where it's like pressure, because we've got that feedback before, and it's not about like the wins, but like you have an opportunity to grow. And like, I'm not going to let you doubt yourself. I'm not going to let you stop here. And I think that has been like through and through. And I think I get frustrated when people don't progress, when people like get in a standstill. And I don't know if that's really answering your question, but like, I know you can move, so let's move. Like, what do you need to get better? And I think we've always kind of seen the whole person, not just like that rugby player. Like we've been aware of like people, like while we were coaching in Whitewater, when we were in Vernon, or even now when we're at Hamilton, like there are lots of things that impact a person's life, whether or not they show up to practice or whether they show up in a good headspace or not. And so I think, you know, we both are trained as social workers. So we truly look at that whole person and all the different things that they bring to the table when they're coming to a practice. And so I will always ask you to continue to move forward or continue to grow. But I'm also going to be, like Max said, empathetic to like, I know that life is going on. So if you need a mental health day or you need to go. Like there's no consequence. There's no bad thing about it. But like when you're here and you're ready to work, like be ready for me to push you because I'm going to do that. But not in a way that's like do better, like not micromanaging, not like demanding, but just like, I believe in you. And I believe, and I think this was a big thing that we talked about this season. Like we were talking about like our beliefs about ourselves, our belief about the team. And I think multiple times I repeated, I believe that each of you were meant to be here today. I believe that this is the opportunity that we have today. And like, we're going to do what we need to do today. And so just like speaking truth into them and belief and like that empowerment that Mac showed me as a player, that I think I've just stayed there. So I don't know that a belief around players has changed for me, but I think it's maybe like hardened. Like I've gotten more and more like continued to believe the same thing.
Those are both great answers. Good. I love it. right? Like Max getting more empathetic, aka soft, right? And Snooks, what I hear you saying, Snooki, is that like you've developed this philosophy of if we're setting a goal together and we're putting it out into the world, I'm going to help you go towards it and achieve it until you tell me you don't want that goal anymore. You can't beat a coach who's never going to back down, who's not going to quit on you. Mac and Snooki aren't ending, right? What are some things as coaches, as humans, besides coaching football, obviously, what are some things you want to work on as coaches? And, you know, what do you do to stay sharp? What do you do to get better? You know, talk me through your process on those types of things.
Next, you want to go?
Yeah, I will go. So I definitely would say this question is really hard for me because I feel like I am losing my sharpness. I am losing my ability to engage purposefully the way that I want to. And that's because I have 2 kids at home and my job is really demanding as well. And so what once was I'm at every practice with Mac has turned to now I'm at 2 practices and now I'm at 1. And so I have a lot of my own like about that. And so it's just belief that even the little bit that I can give still has an impact. But then it's just like those little things that we can continue to do together. Repeat your question again.
Your impact is there no matter how much time you give. You can see that, right? So give yourself some grace, girl.
Thank you.
It's not the amount of time you get to spend with someone. I hear you saying it is the quality of that time you get to be there, right?
Right,
so
absolutely.
My question lies in, what do you want to get better at, and how do you work on that? Where do you see yourself going? And also now we'll talk about parenting a little bit. This came up on another pod, right? Now that you're a parent, how do you see your parenting and coaching worlds intersecting? You know, where do you see yourself using coaching in your parenting world? And do you see yourself using some of your parenting skills in the coaching world?
Yeah. So the thing I want to get better at, or what I continue is like, if we demand the girls to continue to get better, then we do too. Like it is a never ending learning process. And whether that's new drills, I mean, Mac is the way better at the drills and all of that. You tell me what you want me to do. I'm going to adapt it as we go. But it's just like continuing to find ways to have impact and continuing to find ways for me is to like, again, I'm going to go back to building relationships, but also like not be afraid to have hard conversations because there's not many people that like are comfortable in the ick. And I live in the ick. And so like, I want to continue to have those hard conversations with our girls and just help them like know that again, they can continue to come to us because again, when we look at a player, there's so much in their life that is happening and we know so little, but you can see when things change in them and you can see that like something else is going on. And so just continuing to be in tune with that and to not be afraid to have the hard conversations, not be afraid to ask. And I think one of the things that we continue to struggle with, I think as coaches is like creating girls who, and we've gotten better this year, but like can continue to fight in that high caliber games and like don't give up, that they continue to believe in themselves, that they continue to fight hard. That game that we just talked about, that state game, totally showed that. I mean, and it was just cool because you asked us 3 years ago that when they would have quit, their heads would have dropped, they would have been done. And so it was just really awesome to watch. Like these girls that we have right now are feeling that, they're believing in that, they're following through with like, trust yourself, trust the process, trust your skills. And so I think we're continuing to fine tune that and sharpen that. Your question about parenting. So we had the really cool opportunity to in 2022. So I was pregnant and then I had a baby and I planned this really well. So I have a baby September 2nd and rugby started, right? So I'm at practice that Thursday because listen, rugby doesn't stop and we had a really exciting fall ahead of us. So I got to bring, I did not bring the itty bitty baby because I am a little smart. But I got to bring at the time he was 3, my 3-year-old to practice every time I went. And so I got to come to practices doing the whole postpartum thing, but also that he got to watch us coach. He got to learn like this. I'd be quiet when the coach is talking. And this is how I interact with girls, like not just girls, but like other players. And He got to join the fun practices and do the piñatas with us. And it was just cool. There, I have a video of Mac was doing a fun practice with the girls, and she's like, "You're going to do shapes." And he lost his mind. Shapes! I love shapes! And like, it just like cool to see like something so little is so important to him. And I kid you not, if you ask my son, who is your favorite person in the world, he would say Mac. And it's not because they hang out every day. It's not because, you know, it's just she makes people feel good. And he loses it. He will randomly just be talking about like, oh, can Matt come over? Like all the little things. And so it's coaching, and our relationship is always going to be intertwined with my parenting. And again, going back to like the attitude, gratitude, it is that like, we are blessed to be here. We are blessed with the things that we have. Like we are happy, and we want to give back. We want to be the people who people feel comfortable coming to our home. People feel comfortable having conversations. And my son is a wild child. But
Really?
oh God, if you think I'm wild, you should meet my husband. But it just, I think it's always going to be intertwined. It's always like who I am as a human is also who I am as a parent, who's also who I am as a coach. Like I just authentically me. And I think the same for Mac is like, we just bring our authentic self of like love for each other, love for growing people, love for like, we're going to make good humans, whether that's in a parenting role or a coaching role, or just being here. So I think that it totally intersects.
Mac, what do you want to work on?
I think this year I really tried to put a focus on the things that I wanted to grow up on. So like delegation, knowing that Snooki, you know, some of her time was going to be a little bit less. And so I can't do it all by myself. And I really had to have some honest conversations with myself and set some boundaries with rugby. I think that I was just in an unhealthy spot of trying to do it all, and that's just not going to work for anybody. So this year we did bring in a couple new coaches, and so that's been fun. And this fall I actually had the opportunity to kind of like sit back and not really do a lot of coaching. I was more so like the general manager, kind of did like game day operations, which is a task in itself, you know.
Yes.
But that was such a rewarding opportunity to watch. So we had a old player, she just graduated from Quinnipiac, and so she's kind of in between where she's going to go next. And so we kind of gave her a little bit of the reins of let's see, you know, what you can bring to us and how much we're going to learn. And that was such a big impact for me. There was so much that I learned from her, just new drills, the way that she went about conversations with the girls. And so I just think like putting myself out there, learning that delegation, and just learning, you know, from others around me, and bringing in. And I just think that that's such a thing that we can role model for the girls. As we always say, like everyone has a role on this team and everyone matters. And so the fact that like I'm going to be able to take a back seat, I'm going to be able to be a quiet one at practice, but yet I'm going to give my energy, my all, and they know that. But every role matters. And so I was just hoping that I could help be a demonstration to the girls of no matter what task we have on this team, it's important, and we appreciate everybody being there.
Absolutely.
The things you're working on, I wish many other coaches would also work on, right? Delegation, setting their boundaries, aka chalking your field. You know, where does my work, where does my rugby and my life balance lie? You know, and you're right, game day operations is a task in and of itself. You know, the setting up the field and making sure all the balls and cones and the fans are where they need to go. You know, and I hear you also doing a bit of coach developing, right? Like you're modeling, obviously, as a coach. You're stepping back and saying, "Hey, this young player that's come out from Quinnipiac, I can never say that right.
I can never say it either. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're modeling for her, and I'm sure she's turning to the two of you when you're both there, and or whenever you're with her, and saying, "What would you guys do? You know, how would you handle this?" And I think that's a super important lesson to put out into the world too, is we can't do this forever, and we can't do everything, right? You can't flip the burgers, blow the whistle, put the cones out, kick a ball, pump the ball up at the same time. We've got to bring more people to the party. You know, it's a lot of fun coaching, and it's very rewarding. So it's so cool to see that you had the courage to let go a little bit, because that's really tough. really tough, as a friend and as a fellow coach. I experimented with that at times, and it's not always the best, but yeah, super stoked and to hear you say you did that. Let's talk a little bit about where Wisconsin youth rugby and high school rugby is strong, right? Let's be real, it's strong. As a former Minnesota coach, Wisconsin was the first place I'd be looking to recruit. And at the end of my tenure at Minnesota, it was like 2/3 players from Wisconsin to 1/3 Minnesota and other parts, What do you think are some lessons or some things Wisconsin youth and high school rugby are doing that other places could take their example from?
I like the summit for one, like that was such an awesome opportunity to bring. I mean, that was incredible. That really got the juices flowing, I think, for a lot of people, and just being able to meet different people within rugby, like that was just special. So I think that we just have a lot of people that really buy in, and we have, a lot of administrators that have been doing this for 20 plus years, a lot of coaches that have been around for a very long time, that they care about the sport. And so I think that that's just been, long-standing teams that, I think about a DS, a DSHA, a CMH, they've both been playing for 20 plus years, and to have that level of competition for us to rise against has just been incredible. So I just think that there's a lot of awesome people here in Wisconsin that really care about rugby, and that have been doing it for a long time. And like Badger Kings, like that guy is incredible, and what he does for us to promote it. I know that our girls, they just get so excited, and he's like a celebrity. I know our girls will be like, who, point him out, like which one is Badger Kings? And I'm like, oh man, like he's right there. But it's just like those kind of people that keep the sport, exciting. I can't thank them enough, because I know our girls love it.
Shout out to Rizzo. He is crushing it. And even though I'm not in the Midwest anymore, I'm not coaching at Minnesota, he's still like putting out stuff that I put out. And I couldn't thank him enough, right?
Yeah.
He was one of the first people that came and introduced himself. I was so nervous to come to my first summit. You guys probably would think that's bullshit, but like I typically hide at things like that and like try to sit in the back or do whatever. And Rizzo came over and was like, "Oh, you're the Minnesota coach," and I was like, "Oh my God, somebody's recognizing me," But I can validate what you're saying, Mac. Like Wisconsin has some really, really good people in all parts of rugby, and the summit. I was really sad it didn't happen last year, and I really hope it comes back, because I'll fly from here to go do that, right? And bring some people with me, like I always do. Snooks, what do you think? What do you think makes Wisconsin youth and high school rugby different? And you can't say Mac's answer.
I was going to say we just eat right. I don't know. I think there's something just special about, I grew up, part of my life, I actually am from Minnesota, but then the other part of my life is in central Wisconsin. And, we didn't have a sport like rugby, and the culture is just so real, and just like to be able to build relationships. I remember the first time we went down to Chicago for the first New Zealand game. And everybody, it was like, you knew everybody was your best friend. Like you literally just said rugby, and it was like the coolest culture. And I think, coming from a more central Wisconsin down to southeast Wisconsin, and there's just more people, more population, more stuff, and coming into rugby and learning the culture and learning, like Max said, just like the heart, like some people just like bleed rugby, and it's like so cool to see the dedication that they have to it, sometimes to a fault, but I just think there is just a lot of dedication. There is a lot of love. I think we do get some like beefy girls because we do eat right, and like when you can be a beefy girl and be successful and be loved on and be appreciated, it's different, like Max was talking about volleyball earlier, like a lot of our girls in our high school, when they get cut from volleyball or they get, have a bad experience in soccer, like when coaches don't coach right and you find a coach who does it right, or at least makes you feel better, like that's how you get the girls. And when you can get a group of athletic girls, thicker girls that like can do the tough stuff, like you're going to be phenomenal. And so I think like what we figured out is this rhythm of like, how do you recruit the right girls or recruit the girls to build up like those, and really like school teams are a little bit easier than club teams. And when you do, at least in our space, when you do club and you're trying to recruit from schools and you don't have somebody in the school, it's really hard to continue to have that filter of girls, versus when you start to put a person in the school that you have a connection with and you can recruit, it's easier to grow a team. It's easier to have exposure. And so I think that's what we've done. And that's why you see the success from DSHA, you see the success from CMH, you see it from Hamilton, is because we have people in the schools actively recruiting. You see, like, it is known rugby, it is loved, like people know you do well. And so it's become a really popular sport, I think, for all of those reasons. And people have tactfully been able to do that. I don't know how other, like, if the difference between single school and club in other areas, but I definitely think for our area, where we see is club sports struggle a little bit more than our single schools. And I think it's just because of the recruiting opportunity.
Yeah, I would say I experienced that as well in the Midwest, right? That the single schools always did better than the clubs for whatever reason. And whether it was that singular point in the school itself or the pride in playing for the school, I think that's a unique part of the Midwest, specifically Minnesota and Wisconsin experience, is you get to play for your school, right? Like Edina and those types of schools over there. It used to be Minnetonka, but they actually went to a club recently as well. So just throwing this out there, I will not say beefy girls or well-built girls at all, but if there are any women's players that would like to explore a career in the maritime industry, Cal Maritime has a 93% post-graduation job placement rate, and it's a pretty cool major. So send them my way. We're building the women's team. Would love to recruit some kids from the Midwest and show some of these California kids like what some tough kids really look like, right?
Right.
So, and that's not to say California kids aren't tough, but Midwest kids were built different. Like I had to stop my players from physically wrestling at every practice, right? Like it was like they were in the Iowa or Minnesota Gopher wrestling room like every day. And then they tried to wrestle me, little bastards. Who else? Okay, so your presence on social media, I love it, obviously, right? And we've talked about Rizzo and Badger Kings. Somebody else said that they were using social media as an informal method of coach development, like finding outlets or finding drills or techniques, tactics. What are, as people who have embraced social media in the game, what are your top 3 social media accounts that you like to look at?
Yeah, there's a lot that I follow for drills. Like the rugby trainer, he's always one that I'm stealing drills from. There's Rugby Creative, and there's so many that you'll get in on an algorithm of all of these drills. So I really appreciate that. I also think that our algorithm on our Mac and Snooki seems to be like a lot of leadership and kind of just a lot of like that mental approach of like the discipline and kind of that. So I think that drives us too, of just kind of settling into the work that needs to be done. That's always, been appreciated. So I don't know, Stokes, you got any?
I was going to say, I think it's like, again, I'm not the most technical, or like, I don't really do the drills. Mac just tells me, she gives me a quick rundown and I follow her. And if I don't know, I just make it up. But I think what I get stuck on, or what like really speaks to me, is those leadership. It's just like those one-liners or those like videos that are just like, this is why we do what we do. Like it continues to build that energy of like, here's the motivation and here's how you kind of show up in that space. And we also do have like a lot of our mental health piece, and like, I think again, that's my professional life too. Like I live and breathe mental health, and just to be able to bring awareness to that. I think we follow a lot of channels, or like they kind of come up on our feed naturally too. And so just being able to spread awareness and say like, we are people that will talk about that. Like, I think it's all of those things. Like that's really being able to follow a little bit of the mental health awareness, a little bit of the leadership, a lot of the drills, and just other like rugby programs. Like I love seeing other programs being successful. I love seeing a good video where somebody just pulled a good stiff arm or whatever it might be. And like, I love praising other programs. And so like to be able to show love to other people in other spaces, like I think those are also big things for us too, is just being somewhat in touch of what is happening outside of just our space, because we're not in a bubble. We live in this really connected but disconnected world. And so how do we continue to show connection and show love to just outside of ourselves too? So I think it's a little bit of everything.
I think we also got to mention the queen, Alona, and everything that she has done.
Of course.
We were just having this conversation last weekend about everything that she went through with going through Dancing with the Stars and the vulnerability that she showed. It's just incredible, and just what she speaks upon with body image and how she fights that good fight for all of us and all of the young girls that watch her. And that's just been really incredible. And I'm so grateful for her journey and just our girls, you know, hearing and seeing that, and just knowing that they could also be doing that exact same thing. So yeah, she's the best.
Well, and it's okay to be vulnerable. Like, it's okay to not get a great score. It's okay to be in the bottom, and it's okay to like cry in those spaces, but then to come back, to get up, to work hard, to go do it, and to show the improvement. And it wasn't about, was she the best dancer? It was about, you showed up, you improved, and you really, and it was the engagement with the community. Like, I dang well know that those views that they got, the votes they got, were because of her. Like, I don't even care if somebody fight me on it. Like, it's because she showed up in spaces, and people love her because she's funny, she's relatable, she is not the typical thing we see. And so absolutely. And I'm sure there are moments for her that were really stinking hard, and she wishes she could look a little different, in those video clips, but like, she showed up, she was vulnerable, she had moments that like were hard, and she still got up and did it again and did it better. And so I think that it was so powerful. And I agree. She always shouts us out. Every time we go to nationals, she video chats us personally to say, go Hamilton. So we could say we're best buds.
Yeah. She might not know it, but we're best buds.
No, I think you make a great point there on Alona's social media, right? She takes that risk of putting herself out there, and she's not putting herself out there in like a victim sort of way, right? Like, oh, I didn't make it to the top 4 or whatever. No, I mean, she clearly made it to the top 4 because she put her vulnerability out there, she put herself out there, and then she kept fighting. And kept fighting. And you know, I think that's a really good example to follow, right? You both have mentioned leadership a couple times. I actually have one more question that I would love to lob this question grenade over to the two of you. When you start a podcast, people will start telling you like, hey, this is a good question to ask. So this happened today. A fellow coach sent this over and said it was a great question. We talk a lot about leadership, how to get out front, how to put yourself out there, how to express vulnerability, in a world full of leaders and us as coaches trying to get folks to show initiative and drive. How do you create followership? How do you build that? How do you say sometimes you're not going to lead, it's time to follow, right? And what are your thoughts and methods around that?
Snooks, you got it?
Yep. I was going to say, I want to start. So Mac might get into it a little bit more, but we do like a leadership academy. We've had lots of conversations where we talk about roles of the team, and those roles are going to morph and change every time we add a new player. And so we definitely speak that in, like, own your role, own what you're doing in this game, in this moment, because your position could change, your voice might change. You might be named captain this season, but not next season. Like, you just own what you do. And leadership doesn't always have to come with a title. It's how you show up in that space. And so she can talk more about that, but I'm going to say, how do we live it? Because I think we live that with our dynamic duo. And because I think what people struggle with is, like, we get asked this all the time. Who's the head coach? There's not a head coach. It's the two of us. And if you really ask me, I'd be like, Mac is the one, she's a decision maker, but am I always constantly in her voice chirping? Of course. But we tangle with different things. And like, sometimes it's like, I see things this way and she sees it that way, but there's not this hierarchy of like, she's the head coach, I'm not. Like, it's not like that at all. And people get really weirded out by that. They're like, how could that be? Because of the level of respect that we have for each other, because there's no need to have that title, that we lead. And we lead in different ways, and we find a way to support each other and give each other the space. It's not about like, how much space can I take up? It's about, how do we do this together? And so I think that we literally, and like, so like, one of the other things that I just love, I stinking love touch judging. I know a lot of people hate that, but it is literally one of my favorite duties. And that might be a duty that people just hand off, like, oh, one of our new players or somebody on the bench could go do that. but it is such an opportunity to lead or to be a voice on the other side of the field for our girls. And just to, again, you could ask us a question. This is a game we should play sometime. You could ask Mac a question about something, and then ask me the same question, and I can almost guarantee we will answer it the same way. And it's because of those conversations that we've had in a car. It's because of the way that we view and our values, and it's because we see each other, we respect each other as like equals. It's not about this higher or lower. So that's the coolest thing, is like, I'll play a role for the team that I'm going to go touch judge. It's a job that nobody wants. I love it, but also it's a job that we need somebody on our team to do, you know. And then maybe again, one time, I might be heated about this, but one time I show up to a game a little late because it was at 4:30 and I didn't get done with work until 4:30. And all of a sudden I see Mac stirring the game. Not okay. But the sir, whatever, didn't show up. And so the other team asked Mac to sir, which is bullshit. But so she was out there stirring. And so I'm coming down in my work clothes trying to help support. And so then again, so she's in the game doing that role for both teams so that the game would continue. So then I'm coming over to support the role of subs and trying to navigate that. You know, it's just, we so easily can kind of mold into that and have a fluidity with it, that it's not about like, who's better, who's the leader, who's this. It's like, I bring things in this space, you bring things in this space, and our role is going to change with the different games, with the different seasons, with the different things that we need. And we're not afraid to do the work. We're not afraid, okay, I'm going to go put the pads away this time, or I'm going to be the ones to stay at the end to clean up the garbage. Like, we're always going to be there to support each other, no matter what role we play in that moment, as coaches. And then I've also needed to grow as a player. And I have had some really tough, challenging times. So I was a captain and the president of Oconomowoc women's rugby for, I don't know, a handful of years, and had to walk away from that, you know, just because, again, it's too much when you're a parent and when you're coaching and all the things. And I wanted to prioritize parenting, of course, but also coaching with Mac. And so I had to walk away from that. It was a total choice to move forward, not be the president, to ask to not be a captain, because I knew my role had to change. And in my thinking part of my brain, I knew that was true. In the emotional part of my brain, I struggled so significantly in so many ways because I felt I don't add value if I don't have that title. And it's just not true. It's simply not true, because I know I walk on the field today with all those girls and I damn well know they're all going to be like, oh, Snooki, this is great, because of who I am and the energy that I bring, not because of my title, not because of, you know, whatever is on my shirt. It's because of who I am and what I bring. And so I think we truly live that. Like, yes, do I believe we are leaders? Absolutely. But do I believe we can make ourselves small so that other people could be big? Absolutely too.
Yeah, I think you summed it out perfectly. And I just think like servant leadership, that's really
Yes.
kind of the foundation of what we are. Like, we're going to make you feel that you're the most important person. We don't have to be the one speaking. I'm going to lead by example. And I'm going to be the one that follows. And,
Yeah.
you know, as that leader and showing that role, and just taking care of your people and loving them and, you know, just showing them that they matter. And I think that that's just really how you can encourage then everybody, like whoever the leader is in that moment, support them, love them, any teammate. That's what we're going to do for each other.
Yep.
You know, in addition to servant leadership, I hear you both saying modeling is a huge
Mhm.
part of your coaching philosophy and what you do. I hear you say the fluidity, right? When one steps out front, the other is going to draft and push them a little bit harder. You know, it's really cool to hear all of that and how you ebb and flow. You could see it even when we're talking. You know, one takes the lead and the other gets in behind, and then you shift and you go to the other side. That is super cool. It's super cool to watch. And I just can't thank you both enough for coming on here. You know, I'm fanboying a little bit. You know, I've always been a fan of the two of you ever since we met, and I saw what y'all were doing. I remember you introduced yourselves as Mac and Snooki, and I was like, Snooki? You said Snooki? Like the
That's
actual,
right.
you know, but it's true. It's your personas, it's your
Mhm.
coaching philosophies, it's the people who you are, right? And Snooki, I don't know if you realize this or not, but you said something quite powerful where you said, I'm going to step down from these two positions,
Mhm.
captain and president, right? And yes, emotionally, I'm feeling that a little bit, but rationally, I know those aren't who I am. I am Amanda Huber, aka Snooki, who coaches with Mac, and that's still who I am and what I'm going to be. And I think that's pretty powerful for your athletes and for each other to see that you're both your authentic selves. Like, if you can't see the authenticity in this conversation and the genuine love and care that you both have for your athletes and for each other and for the sport and the craft of coaching, like, I don't even know what you're watching here or what you're listening to, right? So I just thank both of you for putting yourselves out there and coming on this podcast. And in closing, what would the two of you want to leave folks with, right? Like, whether that's who, Mac and Snooki are, who Katie and Amanda are, what do you want to leave people with? What do you want them to feel? What do you want them to see? What do you want them to hear in closing?
I think just, be you and be proud of who you are and that you matter. And the way that you treat people is going to matter. And if you can be kind and show loyalty and not put judgment on anybody, like, you're going to be so rewarded in life with the relationships that you have.
Yeah. And truly, like you said, show up in your space and don't be afraid to take up space. And if you need someone to talk to, or you need, a helping hand, like, we're here. Like, that's what we do, is we build each other up. We share space. We uplift people. Like, we're not afraid to just say, like, hey, we're content with who we are and where we've come. If you need a helping hand, like, let's do it. Let's do it together. But also we're going to show, I almost do reverse. I'm going to show up aggressively. And if that's too much for you, don't feel that you have to make me small. You you can just be okay with me showing up the way that I am, and like, treat people with respect. And you don't know their full story. You don't know why people are the way that they are. And if you want to know, then ask the question. Don't place judgment.
It reminds me of the trend. We're listening and we're not judging.
We already did that one.
we do that in our house every day.
Yes.
Thank you both again.
I just want to thank you, though, for creating this space, because I think, like, truly, like, being a leader, even in like an organization, is really lonely. It gets really lonely at the top because not everybody has that space to, like, I'm very grateful for my relationship with Mac, because on the hard days, I always have somebody to bounce that back on. But when you're coaching alone or being a leader alone, it is lonely at the top. It is lonely when days get hard. And so I appreciate you creating this podcast for people to hear other people's stories, to know there's lots of similarities, but to also know that, like, you're not alone in this, and that there is a community of people who want to learn and grow and share their stories and share why they do what they do. So I want to thank you for creating a space for that, because it's not talked about enough.
You bring up a lot of good points. And one, I appreciate the acknowledgement. You're right. There's no one else but folks who put themselves out front, who understand what you're going through, and going through as coaches, as leaders, as people who are vulnerable, who put themselves out front, who are their own worst critics. And, I read a book, and that's what prompted me to do that presentation, because it was so eye-opening for me. I thought I was on an island, and it turns out all the other head coaches around me were going through a very similar circumstances or situations, right? And so this is an opportunity for all of us to support each other and to say, Mac and Snooki go through the same thing that Snacks goes through, right?
Yep.
Derek Wagner at Eau Claire goes through the same thing that Mac and Snooki and Snacks goes through. And really, we never reach out because we're always competing, but at the same time, like, the person you're competing across from, you give that smile and that nod, like, yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know what you're going through. Let's go grab a piece of pizza after the season or something. Right. Yeah. So I'm stoked to have this space and see what happens with it.
Thanks for tuning in today. If you liked what you listened to, please hit the subscribe button and leave us a review. We appreciate any followers and any input. This is the Coach to Coach podcast with Sean Lendersmith.